can't run away. I must let my heart have its say. Though my heart is the heart, my heart is the heart of a stranger.
Robbie, thank you very much for coming in. We just heard a little bit of Heart of a Stranger from Sam Tutty there. One of the songs, a part of the songbook on a written format, as well as the audio album, which is what people will be able to hear if they'll be able to hear that. Tell us why you wanted to put it together, why you wanted to do this, and what it's all for.
Well, you know, when you're on the other side of the footlights during an audition, you see young people performing audition songs for you that aren't necessarily the perfect song to sing for an audition. And I realized people don't necessarily know instinctively what a good audition song is. So I thought that I would create a tool using my own songs that I'd written for young people to perform in auditions and also explain why this is a good song for an audition, that it has a dramatic arc, that because that's the thing with musical theater, is musical theater songs are not like pop songs. Pop songs can be extremely well written, but there's no emotional growth in the song. You take a song like Hey Jude, wonderful song, amazing song, brilliant, but when Paul McCartney sings it, he's at the same place emotionally at the beginning of the song as he is at the end. Not true with a musical theater song. Musical theater song is in essence, it's just it's a musicalized piece of drama, and so I provide the 16 songs in the songbook for that reason, and give people a little tutorial as to what to do with them and why and when it's a good time to sing that song.
Well, you've written so much amazing stuff. How did you whittle it down to just 16?
It was hard. It was I chose songs specifically that would be good for younger performers. Not entirely. I mean, it has a fairly broad spectrum there, but but I chose songs that felt iconic. For example, we have my song "Lovebirds," which is the title song from my show Lovebirds, obviously, and Melbourne Bumble Scratch, which is the title main character from my show Bumble Scratch. But also, I wanted to have a patter song, where there's a lot of very fast songs. I wanted to have very deep emotional songs, anthemic songs, but that also had that emotional growth that we talked about. So I wanted to get a wide variety of things for male singers, for female singers, and a variety of emotions.
Well, we'll get back to the songbook in a sec, but let's go back to the start, when you were growing up, and of course you come from an amazing legacy of male musical talent. Tell us how you got into musical songwriting and performance side of things as well. And was it just such a given that you were going to do that, given your father and your grandfather?
Yeah, well, it's funny because, and it's a strange thing for me because it's a strange quote, but literally my earliest memory was that I wanted to be a songwriter. My father and uncle were writing some of the most famous, at that time, family musicals of all time: Bedknobs and Broomsticks, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, Mary Poppins, and these musicals that they were writing. And so I was a little boy hearing these songs. Well, these are the songs that a child loves to hear. So I knew my father was a songwriter, my uncle, but also my grandfather, who was still alive at that point, and he had written songs for people like Frank Sinatra and Ella Fitzgerald and Billie Holiday and Bing Crosby, Maurice Chevalier, a massive list of people. And so I just sort of felt a little bit like the character Simba when he sings, "I just can't wait to be king." Of course, I didn't realize how long and hard a journey it would be, but that's how the journey started.
Yeah, but you got your first gig at 16, is that right, writing?
Well, I wrote a lot of different. I wrote a lot of different things. I wrote musical films back in high school. I actually produced an award-winning film called The Dog of Darkness, and it was a musical, 9-minute little masterpiece there, and then I was inducted into BMI at 16, but that had as much to do with family connections as it did a merit, you know.
Yeah.
So,
well, let's get back onto the book now. It marks a century of your family's sort of writing and their history being musical talents. That's quite something, isn't it?
well, that's right, because the songbook, which is also available as sheet music,
Yeah.
and it's an audio album, and you can see videos, and so the idea was that, and it was something that dawned on me, that it was exactly 100 years ago that my grandfather's first song, a song called "Good as Gold," was published.
Wow.
Back in New York's Tin Pan Alley.
Wow. Well, we're just going to hear another one of those songs from the songbook and, of course, from the audio album. This is "The Long, Long Road."
You've a heavy load, but you're not at all on your own. Fortunately, the mist will clear, and love will appear all around you. And then you'll have found the road that leads you home.
Rachel John there with "The Long, Long Road." I mean, you've got some big stars in there from the West End as well. It must be great to get them involved. How did that come about?
Well, rising stars, you know, it's a small community. I've lived in London now for 20 years, and I've gotten to know people. I worked with a wonderful casting agent on the project, and it was and made new connections. Both Sam and Rachel are people who I hadn't worked with before, and I was so pleased that they were willing to volunteer for this project.
Yeah, but let's talk about the London musical theatre scene then. What do you make of it nowadays? Because there's a lot of innovative new sort of avant-garde stuff appearing up in the nooks and crannies, not just on the West End. How do you think it's going? And is a lot of the sort of traditional art being lost?
Well, it's funny. I think one of the great appeals of musical theater is that it's a conglomeration of multiple disciplines that have taken millennia to develop, whether it's choreography or set design or costume design or orchestration, music writing, lyric writing. These are all, and they all come together in this magical thing called musical theater. And, you know, you take a century out of the last a century out of the history of the last millennium in any one of those disciplines, and you wouldn't have the musical theater of today. I think that we are verging on a new era. I mean, with all that's going on in the digital space, but people love musical theater. They love the live events, and it's something that you can't take away. I mean, I haven't seen musical theater as vibrant ever in the last 20 years as it is in this, hopefully we're coming to a post-COVID reality, and I mean, theater, it's hard to get a ticket.
Yeah.
And I think that the theater world has been extremely responsible in the way of, you know, people have to wear masks and they have to show IDs and you know, and make sure that they're, you know, that there's an accountability there. I think that we've been very mature, and as a community, and the heroes who have kept the theaters open really deserve a round of applause.
Yeah, certainly right. And let's talk about some of those young people. I mean, the whole book is about kind of helping young performers get to grips with the art form. You've been doing some masterclass work here in London at the Millennium Performing Arts College, is that right?
That was
Tell
our
us a bit
first
about
one,
that.
and we're doing a slew of others as well, making personal appearances. And yeah, it was wonderful to work with the kids and to do a workshop with them. So they sang some songs from the songbook,
Cool.
and it was and some wonderful talent coming up from there.
And what's next for you? I mean, are you hoping to get another one of these out in about 20 years? Have you got some musicals in the pipeline?
Well, this
that
is
can go
this is
into
the
that
other
next
this is the
step?
other side of it. I'm working on a show that we did called Lovebirds, which we hope to have premiere next year, and it's. We have all kinds of exciting plans in store, so we wanted to emerge from our COVID cocoons, and I wanted to make sure that we could be seen by people in the community. And one great place to be seen is in the audition space, because sometimes the most talented people in our business, whether they be directors or music directors or casting directors or producers, are sitting there watching auditions. So you come up with this song by Robbie Sherman with the famous Father and Uncle, and you say, oh, and that's not a bad song. Hopefully they'll say that. And that's part of the approach as well.
Yeah, and finally, just one last question. As this is London Live, you have been in London for 20 years or so.
And I am alive.
And you are alive.
Yes.
That's good.
Last I checked.
Is London now very much your spiritual and artistic home in terms of the way you look at the prism through which you write and you want to get things put on stage? Because you have, of course, most of your productions first appeared on the London stage as opposed to in New York. They started here.
London or in Edinburgh on the Fringe. Yeah. I think that there are two great places to create musical theater and to really originate it. New York, obviously, but London as well, and maybe even more so. Maybe there's even more of a sense of the avant-garde. It's not quite as purely commercially driven. It's so expensive to produce a show on Broadway. Here, you don't have the same kind of restrictions, and there's more of a camaraderie and a team effort. I do think very much London is my spiritual home.